one thing I had highlighted in case is the quote, in this case there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon leaking defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we don't have the same facts or circumstances. I do agree this is a circumstantial case, and circumstantial evidence is sufficient for a bind over and even conviction. Today is January 9th, 2025, exactly 1 year, from the day Neziah Harris disappeared.
Hi, welcome to Justice Exposed, where we cover new, old, and cold cases that needs more light shedded onto them to hopefully gain more exposure or even justice itself. Thank you all for tuning in. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more crime content, or even comment suggestions on cases you would like for me to cover. Thank you so much. Here's another case that makes me rub my hands against my head with so much frustration and anger for what happened to an innocent soul. Years before Jarvis would be charged and accused of murdering and SAing Neziah, relatives of Neziah had filed multiple reports with CPS, raising concerns about Jarvis. They were basically saying that there were times where he had acted inappropriately around her, and he even touched her inappropriately. And this was back in 2022. While multiple complaints alleged improper touching or raised concerns about, possible molestation, none sustained sexual abuse in the eyes of CPS. Now, a few relatives by the name of Kiwana and her cousin Jarrell, and I'm not going to say their last names. They choose not to have their last names identified, so I'll respect that. But they're both relatives of Neziah. And in February of 2022, Jarnell says that she learned of allegations of improper touching involving Jarvis and other children. She also says that she was told about the claims while talking to her niece, Jarvis' girlfriend, which is Shannon, I'm guessing, at the time. And also, it was Neziah and two other children. It was a group of them in conversation about this. And she took those claims very seriously. It couldn't have been Shannon because, why would Shannon come out and speak of these things to another family member but still have them around him? So I'm not sure who this Jarvis girlfriend was at the time. That's a little confusing, but anyways. So she took the claims very seriously. And, she was like, I've seen this dude. He's on the, sex offender registry. And he has spent more than 8 years in prison for what he had done. So she was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it needs to be looked into. So she held off on alerting authorities. She said because her niece said that she would report the claims to the police. But weeks later, Jarnell said that she alerted CPS in her complaint on April 13th in 2022. There was an incident at a birthday party, and one of the children that attended the party accused Jarvis of sexual abuse. Neziah and another child whose name will not be identified, they reported that Jarvis touched both of them inappropriately as well. Jarvis touched the child who we would not identify in her private area, and she said it hurt. So we can already know exactly what he did, unfortunately. Jarnell made the complaint over the phone, and they basically told her that if they needed anything else from her, that they would reach out. But she never got contacted by CPS ever again after that. Okay, guys, I'm sorry if I sounded like I was scrambling. But, so I guess the niece that Jarnell was talking about, or Jarvis' girlfriend at the time, it was Shannon. So, guys, this just got even more crazier. Way back in 2022, Shannon was speaking with another family member about reporting Jarvis from touching Neziah and two other children. And I bet money on it that one of them was Shannon's her own daughter. But she don't give a damn. And this is crazy. Shannon literally acted as if she was like full on ready to report him, get him away from her family, and wash her hands with it and this and that. But whole time, she's about ready to cook up 2 more children with this man. So, okay, so I know I told y'all Jarnell did not receive another call from CPS. Well, until she ended up, receiving a text message from her niece, I guess Shannon, because they keep saying Jarvis' girlfriend at the time, but it's Jernell's niece, if you get what I'm saying. So anyways, Shannon was confirming that she had been contacted by CPS. The text read, CPS called me. They called me about the well-being of my kids. Then they called back to get Jarvis info. A CPS spokeswoman wouldn't tell 7 News Detroit if investigators over-questioned Naziah about the allegations that she was touched or whether they notified police, citing state and federal law. But it wasn't the only CPS complaint naming Jarvis. Kiwana said that she heard about some allegations against Jarvis from a conversation with his girlfriend, I'm guessing Shannon. 2 months after her cousins called to CPS, she filed her own complaint. And she said, I told them that there's a problem and they need to be aware of it. I'm 90% sure that there's a sexual abuse going on within the home, Kiwana said. Did you specifically mention Jarvis by name? Asked Channel 7's News. And she said, yes, absolutely, his full government name. Internal CPS records obtained by 7 News Detroit show that investigators looked into a complaint in June of 2022, conducting a face-to-face interview with Jarvis, who strongly denied all allegations. Of course, a forensic interview was conducted with the alleged victim, and no disclosures were made, records show. CPS said that the home was clean and free of observed safety concerns. The allegation was denied and assigned a low-risk level. Could you guys believe this? Oh my. The fact that back in 2022, years before this baby went missing and unalived, they had every single information, detail, all the files right there, all the proof and evidence right in their faces, and they literally turned the other cheek. This is my issue with CPS. They will literally sweep these evil, wicked, vile things under the rug and go after children who are in homes that are very well loving, but they find any little reason to take them out and put them in homes that is full of hatred. But when CPS sees that kids are abused and neglected and hated, they look the other damn way, go on about their merry little business, and it pisses me off so badly because it always ends up in those kids being murdered. So with that being said, not only was Naziah failed by many family members, besides the small amount that I could count on one hand that did try to speak out, CPS failed her miserably. Poor baby. CPS. Are they really here to protect our children? Or is that just a front for something so much more dark and sinister? Now let's fast forward in time where we go back and review interviews with 7 Mile Radio. Shout out to Mark. And go subscribe to his channel so you can get even longer clips of these interviews. He's on YouTube at 7 Mile Radio, and he's also on Facebook at Mark DeAndre. And guys, the interviews he did with the family members is insane. I'm just going to pull up a few clips so that me and my audience, we can discuss this together. It's crazy, guys.
All right. So we couldn't get you on the video chat, man. I really wanted to, kind of talk face to face with you digitally, man, and had this conversation with you. But just first off, man, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm just, I'm frustrated, hurt, confused, just everything, and just trying to stay alive. That's about it. Trying to stay alive.
Dig it. Now, when you spoke to me last night, you said that you had no idea about what was going on in regards to the situation. So, what did you know or what didn't you know as far as what's going on?
So, I was, and I got a really, really bad heart. Operates at 5%. So I was in a hospital when the police contacted me. And so it took me by surprise. So they asked if they could give the grandmother the number. I'm like, yeah, because, we had lost contact. So they gave her the number, so I continued talking to the police. Everything, like she said, everything that this woman has said, it's been like in a common way. Like, she's a straight A student. She sent me pictures of, like young pictures, like to where in my mind, like, okay, my baby's still okay. So with Naziah and Naziah mom, just briefly, okay, we had made an agreement when she was born that the grandmother would take care of her. Now, the grandmother needed full rights to be able to provide full care. So we both signed over our rights to the grandmother. I put myself on child support. Now, once you did that, I put myself on child support. I was still going over their birthdays, taking clothes, everything. When I had this procedure done to my heart, I didn't have a phone for a while because I was in the hospital. They put a defibrillator pacemaker in. I had to go to rehab to work, so I lost contact. When I got out of there, they had moved, so I couldn't get in contact with them. Now, forward 3 or 4, maybe 5 years later to now, however much time that was, now my daughter's missing. And that's when the police came down.
Okay.
So that's briefly.
Okay. Now, I want to say, without, I don't mean no disrespect by it, but like, without getting into too much your business, your personal business, I guess as deep as you want to go, why was it that you felt like you needed to give your rights up to her as opposed to raising her yourself if you knew that the mother was in whatever condition that she was in where she couldn't take care of her? Why didn't you take her?
All right. So, I made a decision, for one, without my wife knowing. See, I'm married, so I made a decision without my wife knowing, and her name is Chantel. Tail knew my position when I was in because we had worked together, and we had told the grandmother, the situation. So, and I know people are going to go ham or whatever, but I tried to be as responsible as my mind at that time could take me. And, I didn't run. I ain't, everybody want to say something. Go get them other guys that ain't taking care of this and ain't taking care of that. I took care of it. So, it was only because at that time, in my mind, I was trying to protect my wife's feelings without her even knowing.
So when you say you made a decision without your wife knowing, the decision was to give up custody of your daughter, or was it what was the decision?
To sign the rights over so the grandmother can do full, so she'll be able to provide anything that she needed as far as funding, state, whatever she might need.
So you made that decision without your wife. So do you feel like had you told your wife the situation, she would have what? Maybe convinced you to take her, or convinced you to do what you did?
You know what? Now, when all this happened just now, I even apologized to my wife because I took away my wife's ability to, have her own feelings for the situation, and I knew that, and I had to have that conversation again with my wife. I've not done what I've done. I know for sure this situation wouldn't happen, and it's tearing me apart because she would have had the 2 homes to go to and come to, and a lot of stuff. But my background growing up, it wasn't. I mean, I think it's still. You got to understand, everybody don't make right decisions. Everybody just hear the story oh, he should have done this. I'm pretty sure you should have done some things too. Now, I'm just being upfront and truthful
Right.
about what happened at that time. That's all I'm doing.
Right. Right.
You know, and I want to, if somebody want to ask, fine, but I still don't want to I don't want to get away from me putting the information out here that I do know.
Okay. Right.
You know, for the main reason we're here.
Yeah. Most definitely.
But
I mean,
they
that was.
do. I do think people deserve a background. Like, where's this guy been? Or what's
Yeah,
you know?
and that's what I
So
was,
to the
that's
mature,
what I wanted to ask you. Like, who are you? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people it seem to be forming an opinion, not knowing whatever the situation may be. So I was just trying to give you a platform to speak your piece and say what you had to say as far as how you felt about the situation, and as well as about what you know, as far as going on, as far as I guess I guess the conditions of the family that she was living in, and all of that. So I mean, what beyond what I just asked you would you like people to know about the situation, whether it be like I said about the family or you or what? What do you want the people to know?
uh, I mean, I would take any questions if somebody want to ask. But as far as if we are moving forward to the grandmother of Naziah, I'm gonna move right forward.
Okay, now
So
before we do that though, I do see one question that I want to address. Now somebody asked, so did you cheat on your wife? Okay, and conceive
yeah,
Nevaeh?
obviously, yeah. That is what it would be. Yeah, that is what it would be.
So you
That
did
was
that to basically
what
protect
has
her from
happened.
knowing about her and gave her up to the grandmother. So at what point did she find out about your daughter?
So for one, when you put yourself on child support, they come out. I didn't know that. So they
Okay.
came out, and I came home from work one day, and I had to have a total conversation with my wife. And what had done happened had been done already, and that's how my wife found out, and I had to deal with it, and I had to deal with it.
So now, one thing that was in the back of my mind, as I was learning the history from some of the family of Lady, I guess that's her name, that's what y'all call her or whatnot, and her
I
history.
call it Chantel.
Okay,
I
Chantel,
call it Taylor Chantel. Yeah.
Chantel Lay. I didn't know. I couldn't remember her first name. Um, like what was she like when you were with her? If you could give us a window
So
into that.
we work. Yeah, we work together. We redid homes, and she was really good at painting, drywall, and things like that. So I don't know if I was arguing at home or and I used to drink heavily, smoke weed and drink all day back then, and
Okay.
was probably led to some of my conditions. So intoxicated, she was like a real cool person, like to work with, and I guess under influence, one thing led to another, and the situation had happened. But Chantel was dibbling dabbling with drugs back then. I believe it was like coke. I think it was cocaine. She didn't do no pipes. I think it was just cocaine. But
Did you ever use it with her?
moving back.
You ever used it with
Oh
her?
no, I don't. No,
Okay.
no, I don't.
Okay.
No, no, I ain't even that type of cat. So, and Chantel was, bisexual. So, it was kind of almost like a party lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's what it was. Now, as far as when I talk to the grandmother, this situation has gotten a lot worse. Now, Chantel, Chantel had a son before Naziah. You see
Right.
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So I think And you know what? From the podcast.
So in my last video, I thought the son was by him, and I did apologize about that in the comments. But now I am learning that he only has Naziah by Chantel or Lady. So Naziah's brother is not his kid. But now I know,
I don't know if I heard right, but Chantel might even be adopted to her mother. I don't even know. Now these are things that I did not know. I just did not know.
I was thinking that too. I'm sorry to keep cutting off, but real quick. I was thinking that what if Naziah's mom was not really, the biological daughter? I was thinking that maybe the grandmother took in Naziah's mom as just like she took in Naziah and her brother and a few of her other grandbabies. What if she took in Naziah's mom for like a family member though? I do think she was still related, but I don't know. I just don't think that's her daughter. I don't know. It's just something about it, especially the way she just mistreat her, and she don't really like have that love and affection for her as she do for, her true biological kids that we really know of, which are the twins. But anyways, that's just my own personal opinion.
And then the other two kids, cause they said they all ran away when they were younger. So this is what I'm saying. All this stuff, I didn't even know. There was no communication or relationship like that. People make mistakes. People do things and they make mistakes, and you go on with your life. And at that time, you do damage, and you have to learn and you grow, and you just have to keep going through life. And that's basically and that's what it was. That's what it is.
Mervin suffers from congestive heart failure, but is out searching himself every day he's well enough to, with his wife Nakia by his side.
And it's just been very trying, taxing, and empty, but we're not going to stop.
They have been so moved by all who have turned out to help, especially since Naziah's disappearance has caused a rift within the family.
You have moments in your life where you do think you're standing alone. And without anything, they come through. They come through and they there.
Naziah's family is still waiting and wondering what happened to her after she got off of her school bus.
I want to see her again. My son, my daughter wants to see her again.
When Naziah first went missing, her family members like Annette and Shannon had labeled her as a runaway, so they kind of didn't lead the detectives to take her case so serious right away. It took a few months or like over 10 weeks for them to finally take notice into this case, but they did indeed label her as a runaway. The audacity, how disgusting, how evil of them. That's how you know they are 100% involved in whatever happened to Naziah, because they really wanted this case to be like, leveled down from what it should have been and on the hush. And they didn't want it to be so loud as it is now. And now that it's so loud, they're trying to flip the tables and turn their roles over, and as if they're these concerned family members who really cared and loved for her and did everything they could and still are trying to, when that is not the case here. They definitely knew what was going on with Naziah and Jarvis and what else was going on in the house with whomever. They knew about it all. The family is so dysfunctional, so disgusting, so evil, full of trauma and curses that are yet to end, unfortunately, even with the death of Naziah. Many family members kept their mouth shut when the case first came out. You would see them sharing a few, missing signs or missing posts on social media, but most wouldn't really have much to say. And I'm going to really bring up Shannon, because on her Facebook, she posts one photo of Naziah since she's been missing. And Shannon had multiple photos of her on her Facebook and her Instagram, but, she took those photos down. She used to have like 1K something photos on Instagram, and she's now down to like 932. And as well as on Facebook, there used to be so many photos on there, But all of a suddenly, a drastic number of them got erased. And you have to wonder, were those the ones with Neziah? And maybe it could have been Neziah with people that she didn't want them to see her with. But also, it's just quite ironic that she pretends to care so much on these interviews with Mark DeAndre, and she acts as if like she's doing all she can, but she's really giving a half-ass job, excuse my language. But that's just the truth. And I'm just so sick of the phoniness with them. Like, just stop it. If it wasn't for Jernell and Kiwana, like, no one would have really taken this case as serious way back then. Like, once Neziah went missing and it was well over a month, then they went back to look at those reports from Kiwana and Jernell about the, pedophile that was around them and stuff like that. They were like, okay, it's time to red flag this case. Thank God for Kiwana and Jernell. It sucks that it took them two to intervene, and they don't live in the household and they aren't always there. But when they are there, the fact that they noticed those red flags immediately and right away, and they tried to pull Shannon to the side away from everybody to have that one-on-one grown woman conversation with her. Shannon pretended as if she was all on board. She's ready to do what it takes to put Jarvis behind bars, get him away from their children. But no, it was just a front to get Jernell and Kiwana to shut up talking to her about that stuff. She really could care less. It was going in one ear and out of the other. It really sucks that that's just how they get down. But let me pull up this clip of Kiwana and Jernell speaking more on what they were talking about back in 2022.
The sexual abuse, and the pregnancy that she was concealing.
Years before Jarvis Butts would be charged by Wayne County's prosecutor, accused of killing and sexually abusing 13-year-old Neziah Harris, Harris's own relatives say they saw the warning signs and told anyone who would listen.
So that at that point, I was like, this is too much. I'm calling CPS.
I tried not just once, but multiple times for them to take me serious in what I was saying.
Kiwana Morton and her cousin Jernell are both relatives of Neziah Harris. In February of 2022, Jernell says she learned of allegations of improper touching involving Butts and other small children. She says she was told about the claims while talking to her niece, Jarvis Butts' girlfriend, and that the alleged victims were Neziah Harris and 2 other children.
I was just like, oh my God, I was not crazy. This needs to be looked into.
She says she took the claim seriously in part because Butts was on the sex offender registry, having spent more than 8 years in prison for third-degree criminal sexual conduct. She didn't alert authorities at first because she believed her niece would notify police. But weeks later, Jernell did notify Child Protective Services. Her complaint came in on April 13, 2022. There was an incident at a birthday party, the complaint reads. One of the children that attended the party accused Jarvis of sexual abuse. Neziah, and name withheld, reported that Jarvis touched both of them inappropriately as well. Jarvis touched, name withheld, in her private area, and it hurt. Jernell made the complaint over the phone.
They basically told me if they needed me for anything else, they would reach out.
The next day, Jernell would receive a text from her niece, Butts' girlfriend, confirming that CPS had contacted her. CPS called me, the text reads. They called about the well-being of my kids. Then they called back to get Jarvis info. A CPS spokeswoman would not tell 7 News Detroit if investigators ever questioned Neziah Harris after receiving the complaint. But we do know it wasn't the only complaint filed with CPS, naming Jarvis Butts.
And it wasn't easy for me to call Protective Services just because of the horror stories that you hear.
Kiwana Morton said she heard about the same allegations against Butts from a conversation with his girlfriend. 2 months after her cousins called to CPS, she would file her own complaint.
I told them that there's a problem and they need to be aware of it. I am 90% sure that there's sexual abuse going on within the home.
Did you specifically mention Jarvis by name?
Yes, absolutely.
Internal CPS records we obtained show that investigators looked into that complaint, conducting a face-to-face interview with Butts, who strongly denied the allegation. A forensic interview was conducted with the alleged victim, and no disclosures were made. CPS said the home was clean and free of observed safety concerns. The allegation was denied, assigned a low risk level. These are 2 complaints of at least 5 filed with CPS since 2015 naming Jarvis Butts. They allege concerns about possible molestation, physical abuse, or living conditions. Some of the complaints are generic, and none would ultimately substantiate that Butts was improperly touching children. Just over a year after the last complaint on record, Butts would be charged with sexually assaulting and murdering Neziah Harris.
I'm brokenhearted because this could have been prevented. All of it. All of it could have been prevented.
Attorneys for Jarvis Butts declined comment for this story, citing his pending criminal case. As for CPS, a spokeswoman for the Department of Health and Human Services said that their hearts go out to the family and friends of Neziah Harris. They said that state and federal laws prohibit them from commenting on what we just reported, but that they are committed to ensuring the health and safety of all children. I'm Ross Jones.
And wanted to call her mother because Jarvis touched her inappropriately while she was in the basement playing with the puppy. While this little group, now Jarvis was on a game, he wasn't thinking about going up there with Shannon or nothing. Shannon says all of a sudden, while she's up there, she's trying to calm this little girl down and talk to her, Jarvis comes and knocks on the door and says, "What's wrong with her?" And I said, "Shannon, why are you calling me? Is he dead or is he in jail?" No, he left. What you mean he left? Call the police. Let them know where he's going, what car he's in.
Right.
Well, I'm about to take her home, then I'm going to call my mama. What? So I called her back like maybe 30 minutes later. Like, did you call the police? No, my mama said bring the kids home tomorrow morning. She going to talk to them. I'm like, no, y'all don't need to talk to them. You need to contact the police. She did not contact the police. I found out later the police were never contacted. The next day when I called Shannon, I talked to her. She said, my mama talked to them and said the kids end up telling us they lied. They was mad because he wouldn't give them no money. So I called Annette and I said, Annette, are you guys going to call the police? She said, yes, we're handling. I'm going to call the police. So I left it alone. Like, she going to call the police. Shannon assured me that the police had been called, they were involved, there was an investigation going on, all of this. This was in February 22. Well, in April of 22, I called Shannon in a lie. The police were never called.
So apparently, when it was time for the CPS to come and do their interview about the allegations and accusations, Shannon and Annette told them kids to lie. Let's not even sugarcoat it. It's no way that what they're saying is true. Shannon and Annette, they're saying that the kids were lying. They admitted to lying because they wanted money and candy. Please stop it. What child is going to accuse a grown man of touching them inappropriately for some money or candy? How would they even know how to, even scheme and do things like that at such young ages? Let's be so for real. The man did exactly what them children accused him of, and they tried to cover it up and lie. And that goes to show that they knew all along what was going on with Neziah and Jarvis. And it's so heartbreaking because it's like they know everything. I'm sure they know exactly what happened to Neziah, where she is. They are in on it. And the fact that they can sit up here and try to put on this front in this show for the masses as if they're not a part of what happened to Neziah is sickening. And it breaks my heart. But I know justice will prevail for Neziah. I can feel it. It really hurts my heart dearly on how all of this could have been avoided if they had taken the words of those 2 ladies, Neziah's cousins, if those words and accusations that were coming from them were taken more seriously. This could have all prevented. It wasn't just accusations. They had full-on facts and proof, and no one cared. It's like CPS turned the blind eye and did not give a rat's you know what. Let's go forward in time where we talk about the pregnancy with Neziah and how it was believed to be Jarvis's child and what he tried to do to get rid of this child. So Jarvis decided to conduct a research on miscarriages and how he can, create the perfect solution to cause a natural, miscarriage. And so the main thing he looked up was how to do it by someone indulging poison, such as antifreeze, and etc. And the thing is, he really thought that was at his age. That's how you know he wasn't all the way mentally there, because at his big age, he really sat up there and thought that something like antifreeze would cause a miscarriage. I think he literally was trying to take her out as a whole. Forget just the miscarriage. I think his whole plans here was to take Naziah out as a whole. Also, hear me out on this. This is just allegedly and a theory of my personal own opinion. What if, guys, Shannon took Jarvis's phone and conducted this research? What if it was not even Jarvis researching this? What if it was Shannon on his phone? That, I don't know, that kind of would make sense, because she's been acting shady since Naziah first went missing. It's something completely off about her, and she definitely is involved 100%. She makes my skin crawl every time I think of her. I just get sick to my stomach, and I have this bad feeling, and my gut never lies. I have a gift of discernment. I can see right through somebody almost instantly, and it's just something off about her. Very, very off. And she definitely is involved. And I think that she definitely had Jarvis's phone, conducted this research, and also was pretending to be him and texting Naziah at certain times just to see what information she can get out. I don't always think that was Jarvis texting her. I think that Shannon had her own little game she was playing, and she had got a kick out of it until things went too far, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Speaking of Shannon, this also takes me back to, I wanted to show you guys this video. What do you guys think about her pulling Roxy to the side and saying this?
I said it's into lines for one's fight. Yeah. So she should be here. So I'm going to her representatives. This is John. I don't want to be.
Reading her body language and how defensive she is, her nasty, awful attitude, it's all saying I had involvement and I don't need y'all getting too close to me before you find out. The whole I don't want to be filmed and just being so aggressive when all people want is answers. If this was my niece and I know I had nothing to do with this, I'm actually concerned, looking for her, and I'm losing sleep over this, I would do anything. I will work with Mark, anybody, to help get the answers that we all need. I would be losing so much sleep over this. She's so aggressive. I know it's not just me. It just can't just be me. She's legit overly aggressive, very paranoid, so defensive, and those are actions that we really should be paying attention to. And I'm sure us, the viewers, aren't just paying attention. I'm sure detectives have caught on and put two and two together. Yeah, something off with her, And I'm sure if she's not already being investigated, she will eventually be investigated, because they're going back to the allegations that was brought against Jarvis back in 2022 and how she covered up for him. They're going to investigate her thoroughly. I do think that there will be an arrest made with her being involved. I hope so. Just what Aunt acts like this. It really breaks my heart to know the pack of wolves this baby was around. Okay, guys, stay tuned for part 3. And I'm sorry that I keep breaking it down. I just don't want the video to be too long. But in part 3, I'm going to go over the hearing, the interrogation, and evidence that I have put together